Rowan had always believed that the world was bigger than he could ever understand. As a small tabby born in an alley shaded by leaning brick buildings, he thought life would simply be a rotation of hunger, cold, and the careful avoidance of loud footsteps. But he did not know then that a life could change in a moment of loss or kindness or something in between. He didn't remember much about how he had ended up alone. Vague images came to him sometimes. A cardboard box, warm hands lifting him gently, soft laughter echoing off brightly lit walls. He remembered a family maybe. Someone had cared for him once. Someone had called him Rowie, in a voice that now lived only in dreams, fragile as dust floating in late afternoon light. But whatever that past had been, it had vanished long ago. Rowan had grown used to the rhythms of street life, sniff the air for danger, listen for the clink of dropped food, curl up in whatever corner the wind didn't reach. Nights were the hardest. The cold crept under his fur and gnawed at his bones. He often tucked his nose beneath his tail and imagined what it might feel like to sleep in a warm place again, somewhere with blankets and steady breathing nearby. It was on one particularly cold morning that Rowan's story truly began. Autumn had just begun to surrender to early winter, and the city felt sharper for it. The air was thin, and people hurried through the streets with collars raised and shoulders hunched. The alley Rowan had called home for months was growing less forgiving. Wind howled through gaps in the crumbling walls like a warning. Leave before the snow comes. Rowan's stomach squeezed painfully. He paced at the mouth of the alley, peering out at the street. Cars rushed by, their noise slicing through the quiet morning. He hated crossing streets. Too many near misses had taught him caution. But the scent drifting from the bakery across the road was too tempting. Fresh bread, warm butter, faint hints of chicken from sandwiches prepared for early customers. He crouched, waited, listened. The moment a gap appeared, Rowan ran, his paws slapping the pavement. He reached the other side breathless, darting into the small alcove beside the bakery's door. Heat radiated from the building's walls. He pressed himself to it gratefully. People walked in and out, their boots squeaking on melted frost. Rowan stayed out of sight, peeking around the corner. He wasn't bold enough to slip inside, not yet. Humans were unpredictable. Some smiled at stray cats, others shouted and kicked. Rowan had learned to study faces before making any move. A soft voice drifted out through the door. "Mom, I'm going to look outside for a minute." It was a girl's voice, light, gentle. Rowan froze. Footsteps approached, and then the girl stepped out into the chilly morning. She had curly brown hair tucked beneath a knitted beanie and cheeks reddened by the cold. A bright orange scarf wrapped her neck twice, trailing down her coat. Her eyes scanned the street with idle curiosity, then stopped. On him, their gazes met. Rowan tensed, every instinct screaming at him to flee. But something in the girl's face, surprise, softness, made him hesitate. "Oh," she whispered, as if discovering something miraculous. "Hello there." Rowan stood perfectly still, his tail curled protectively around his hind paws. The girl knelt slowly, placing her gloved hands on her knees. "Are you hungry?" No one had ever asked him anything like that before. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small paper-wrapped parcel. "I saved part of my breakfast," she explained gently, opening it. Inside was half of a chicken sandwich. The smell made Rowan's mouth water painfully. The girl tore off a small piece and set it on the ground between them. "It's okay, you can eat it." Rowan hesitated. He sniffed the air. His body trembled, not from the cold this time, but from conflict. Hunger urged him forward. Fear pushed him back. After a long moment, he crept closer. One step, another. Then he darted forward, grabbed the food, and leapt back several feet in one swift motion. The girl smiled instead of reacting with alarm. "Good job," she murmured, as if speaking to a friend rather than a skittish stray. Before Rowan could decide whether to run or stay, someone inside the bakery called out, "Lila, we need to go." The girl stood reluctantly. "I'll look for you again," she told him. Rowan watched as she returned inside. The door closed, and the warm scent of bread drifted faintly around him. He waited, but she didn't come back. Still, the promise settled somewhere inside him, like a tiny ember of warmth. He would see her again. He didn't know why he believed that. He just did. Life didn't change immediately. Rowan still slept in his alley, curled beneath the broken crate. He still scavenged for food and dodged danger. But now each morning, he found himself drawn to the bakery. At first, he kept his distance. He watched from across the street, hoping for a glimpse of the girl with the orange scarf. Days passed, and he didn't see her. He started to wonder if he had imagined her. People often looked at cats with brief affection and then forgot them moments later. Maybe she had forgotten him too. But then one morning, as Rowan huddled behind a newspaper stand, he saw her. She stepped out of the bakery carrying a paper bag, steam rising from it. Her eyes scanned the street left, right, then settled on Rowan almost instantly. "There you are," she called softly. Rowan's ears perked. Something warm flickered in his chest. She crossed the street with careful steps. When she reached him, she sat down on the cold pavement without hesitation. "I brought you something today," she said, opening the bag. "Warm chicken, fresh bread, a small piece of scrambled egg." Rowan edged closer. "I'm Lila," she murmured. "I don't know if you ever had a name, but you look like a Rowan to me. I hope that's okay." Rowan blinked. A name, a real name, spoken gently like it belonged to him. He took the food from her hand this time. His nose brushed her glove briefly. She froze, not wanting to scare him away, but her eyes glistened with happiness. "Good boy," she whispered. Rowan felt something unfamiliar. Trust. For weeks, Rowan met Lila every morning. She always brought food. Sometimes she brought little treats. Once she brought a small blanket scrap, placing it in the alcove where he sometimes napped. Rowan slept on it that night, curled into the lingering warmth of her scent. Lila talked to him constantly, about school, about how her family had moved to the city a year ago, about how she had always wanted a cat but her father was allergic, about how the orange scarf she wore had belonged to her older brother, who lived far away now and only visited on holidays. Rowan didn't understand every word, but he understood the tone. Gentle, kind, safe. Winter grew harsher. The first snow fell in thick flakes that muffled the world. Rowan survived each night only by finding whatever shelter he could under a stairwell, inside a cardboard box behind a cafe, curled against warm vents from a laundry shop. But he looked forward to mornings with Lila. One morning, as he waited near the bakery, he noticed something different. Lila wasn't alone. A tall man, her father, Rowan guessed, walked beside her, their footprints matching in the snow. When Lila saw Rowan, she brightened. "Dad, that's him! That's Rowan!" The man looked down at Rowan with a thoughtful expression. Rowan prepared to run, but instead the man knelt. "So this is the cat you've been feeding?" he said softly. Lila nodded eagerly. "Can we take him home? Just for the winter? He's so cold." Her father hesitated. Rowan's heart sank. "He's a stray, honey," her father said gently. "And I'm allergic, remember?" Lila nodded, though her face fell. She crouched beside Rowan and touched the ground near him, letting her gloved hand rest in the snow. "I'm sorry," she whispered to him. Her father looked at Rowan again. There was something pensive in his eyes, as if debating something inwardly. Finally, he sighed. "We can't take him home," he said, "but maybe there's something else we can do." "What?" Lila asked, hopeful. Her father stood. "Come on, let's go inside." Lila seemed confused, but she followed him into the bakery. Rowan paced anxiously outside, his breath forming clouds in the icy air. After several minutes, they returned. Lila's father carried a small cardboard box lined with towels. Lila carried a bag of cat food. Rowan blinked, stunned. They set the box down in the bakery's alcove, his usual resting spot. Lila tucked the blanket scrap he loved into it. Her father placed a small plastic bowl inside. "This is for water," he said. Lila filled the second bowl with food. Then she turned to Rowan, eyes shining. "This is your house now. Well, your winter house." Rowan approached the box slowly, sniffed, stepped inside. Warmth, soft blankets, shelter. He lay down. Lila let out a tiny gasp of joy. "He loves it," her father smiled. "Looks like he does." Snow fell quietly around them. For the first time in months, Rowan slept without shivering. The winter shelter changed Rowan's life. Lila visited him every morning before school and every afternoon afterward. Sometimes she brought toys made from string and feathers. Sometimes she brought books and read aloud while Rowan lay in his box, purring softly. He couldn't understand the stories, but her voice soothed him. As weeks passed, Rowan grew stronger. His fur regained its shine. The hollow look in his eyes faded. He even began greeting Lila with a soft meow, which made her heart practically burst. One day, as spring approached, Lila found Rowan waiting in the sun, stretching luxuriously. She laughed, dropping to her knees and holding out her hand. Rowan did something he'd never done before. He head-butted her hand gently. Lila froze, then let out a quiet, overwhelmed breath. "Rowan, you trust me." He curled his tail around her wrist. Yes, he did. Spring melted the snow. Flowers sprouted along the sidewalks. The bakery opened its windows, letting warm scents drift widely through the air. Rowan's shelter box had become more symbolic than needed now, but he still slept in it sometimes, curled in the familiar warmth of Lila's blanket scrap. He no longer searched trash bins for food. The bakery staff had grown used to him and left scraps near his box. People who passed by began smiling at the bakery cat. He had a place, a community, a small life stitched carefully by kindness. But something else was coming, something Rowan didn't yet understand. One afternoon, Lila arrived with red-rimmed eyes. Rowan stood immediately, tail flicking with worry. She sat beside him and rubbed her sleeves aggressively over her cheeks. "Rowan, something's happening," she said, voice trembling. "We have to move again. Dad got a new job. We're leaving the city in 3 weeks." Rowan didn't understand the words, but he understood her tone. Sad, anxious, breaking. He pressed his head against her arm. Lila let out a sob and hugged him gently. "I don't want to leave you. I don't want you to be alone again." The thought weighed on Rowan in a way he couldn't name. When Lila left that evening, he watched her go, tail low. He sensed change. Change always meant loss. For the first time in many months, Rowan felt afraid. 3 weeks passed quickly, too quickly. On the last morning before the move, Lila came early. Her eyes were swollen from crying. She carried a small backpack and a folded blanket in her arms. "Rowan," she whispered, kneeling beside him, "I want you to have this." She unfolded the blanket, the same orange scarf her brother had given her years ago. She placed it gently in Rowan's box. "It's yours now," she said, "so you don't forget me." Rowan stepped inside and curled against the scarf. It smelled like her, like comfort. Lila cried silently. "I wish you could come with us. I love you, Rowan." Rowan pressed his forehead to her knee. "Stay," he wanted to say. "Don't go." But people always moved. Life never stayed still. Lila hugged him one last time. Then she walked away. Rowan watched until she disappeared. The alley felt colder than it had in months. Days passed. Lila was gone. Her father was gone. Rowan's food bowls remained empty until the bakery staff noticed and began filling them again. But nobody sat with him. Nobody read to him. Nobody laughed when he did clumsy things. He slept curled in the orange scarf, breathing in the fading scent of the girl who had changed his life. He missed her, deeply. But life, as it always does, continued. Then one early summer morning, a familiar voice rang out across the street. "Rowan!" Rowan shot up, eyes wide. His heart raced. Lila stood on the sidewalk, backpack on her shoulders, her hair longer now, her smile wide and bright. Rowan ran. Not cautiously, not slowly. He ran to her with all the strength in his small body, weaving between cars, ignoring everything but the glowing joy in her eyes. Lila dropped to her knees, arms outstretched. Rowan leapt into her embrace. She laughed through tears. "Rowan, I missed you. Dad brought me here for a weekend visit. I begged him." Rowan pressed his head under her chin, purring louder than he ever had. Lila held him close. "I have news," she murmured. "Dad talked to a doctor. He's doing allergy shots. We're moving to a new house with a yard. And we talked about you." Rowan looked up at her, green eyes searching. Lila smiled, cheeks wet with tears. "Rowan, would you like to come home with me?" Home. The words shimmered in the air between them. Home. Rowan meowed softly, then louder still. Lila laughed and hugged him tightly, lifting him gently into her arms. Okay, she whispered. Let's go home. Rowan didn't look back at the alley. He didn't need to. His long journey was over. His new life warmth, safety, love was beginning. He had found his happiness, and it was wrapped in an orange scarf and a little girl's gentle heart.